Hi everyone, welcome to this week's edition of the Philly Boots. Wow, what are we doing? Oh, it's going to be some editing here. Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Philly Boots Rugby Roundtable. My name's Sean Phelan. Thank you all for watching. And as there's no rugby going on for the last few weeks, we've been profiling some of the biggest and best and most brilliant rugby clubs up and down the country. And this week is no different from the brilliant Kings Cross Steelers. Hello, gents. How are you?
Good. How are you, Sean?
I'm good, thank you, pal. Good, thank you, pal. Matt, we did the rugby show together back in the summer, didn't we? And
we did,
were talking about sort of the state of the game. So it's good to have you back. Thanks for coming on. If you want to just introduce yourself and let us know sort of your role within Kings Cross Steelers.
Sure. Matt Webb. I'm chairman of the Kings Cross Steelers. Been with the club about 7 years now. Still front row when I get the chance to play. Just passionate about what we're doing. But good to talk to you again after the show. Who'd have thought back in June or whatever it was that we'd still be doing these Zoom calls and virtual things. Hopefully out of it soon.
Hopefully. Thanks for giving up your evening. Casper, nice to meet you, pal. Welcome to the roundtable.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for inviting me. My story with the Steelers, I joined probably, I think, the same year Matt did, actually, 2014. I played for the first 15 as flanker pretty much since then. At the start of this season, I was made captain, which obviously means that so far I have an unbeaten run.
Hey. Lovely. Good night. Thank you for giving up your time. And Brian, welcome to the roundtable.
Thanks for having me as well, Sean. Thanks for the invite. I'm Brian. I've been in the Steelers since 2018. I joined the Pathway programme, having never played rugby before in my life, so pretty new, but loving it. And I play in our fourth team, our development team. And up until pre-COVID, I've been a prop in the front row. But I've lost a bit of weight and gained a bit of fitness, so I don't know where I'm going to be now, but we'll need to wait and see what happens at the end of this. I might put it all back on.
No doubt, it's bound to happen. So, Matt, tell us about Kings Cross Steelers. Give us a bit of background on the club for people that might not know who you are and the brilliant work that you do down there.
Sure. We're based in West Ham in East London. We were founded back in 1995, so during lockdown last November, we celebrated our 25th birthday, which was, pretty special for us. We're the world's first gay and inclusive rugby club. We were set up by 6 gay and bisexual men who needed a place to feel comfortable to play rugby and wanted to take their love of rugby to the sort of next level of actually playing and forming a club and a team. So they started it. They trained at Finsbury Park. They trained across London. They found a home in West Ham. And 25 years later, we've gone from 6 to 250 odd members now, a gay and inclusive rugby following that is tops almost 100 clubs around the world. We've got 4 squads in our team right now, everything from the first down to the fourth. First playing at level 8 and out in the Essex RFU leagues. It's a great club, great community feel, great family, and we're really proud of what we're doing down there.
Excellent. And Casper, how did you get involved? And tell us a little bit more about the last few seasons, sort of pre-COVID.
Right. So I joined, as I said, in 2014. I played rugby pretty much, all through school. Played fair bit for a club team called FYB Rugby in Surrey.
I know it well.
Good bunch of guys. And so after I left uni, I thought I'd try out, and I just heard on the grapevine that it was a solid inclusive team around, and so I joined. And to be honest, I had some preconceptions, and they're all a lot better than I thought. So I stuck around with them, and been around for about 7 years now. In terms of the seasons we had leading up to this, we had a famous now famous unbeaten season a couple of years back, an actual one, as in we played games and we didn't lose a single one. And so that was obviously fantastic. We got promoted, and so the next 2 years, I'd say pretty, solid, mid-table, and the year leading up was a bit topsy-turvy. We had our good runs, we had our bad runs, but I think we've really bedded into the league, and we're really looking forward to taking it on and maybe taking it through to the Bingham Cup. But sadly, that wasn't to be due to obviously this pandemic. I think I might have lost connection. Sean.
Yeah.
No, I think you're good. I think it's Sean.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's me. Yeah, don't worry about that. We'll edit that out. My internet, for some reason, is here. Even though I've got boosters everywhere. It's rubbish. Anyway, it's great. Where was I? Matt, when we talked about on the rugby show, you talked about this great initiative that you do for new players that have never played the game before. Can you give us a little bit of background on that? And Brian, did you come through that initiative having never played rugby before?
Yeah, so
that's
pathway... Go on, Brian.
No, sorry, you go for it.
So the pathway to rugby, we've done it 6 times now. We have up to 60 guys who join every year and have sort of never played rugby before. Maybe it's because they've moved to London from a different country, different area where they didn't have the opportunity, or because they sort of self-excluded and felt that rugby or sport wasn't for them. But, the reason Brian's here tonight is to talk about that more, because the stories that come out of that and the way that it changes people's lives, I think, is quite phenomenal. So, take it away, Brian.
Yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity for men. What can I say? Like, it is life changing. This is my 3rd year coming in, or would have been my 3rd season at the Steelers. Never thrown a rugby ball before in my life. Where I came from in Scotland, it's all about football, and I hated it. I hated the kind of toxic masculinity behind it, particularly in Central Scotland. It's very Rangers v Celtic, and it just wasn't for me. So I self-excluded throughout my life. I had friends who were in the Steelers. I moved down to London 7 years ago. Never had the confidence to go for it, and finally threw my hat in the ring and managed to get a place in the Pappy programme. Was unfit, never played before, and literally the team taught us from scratch how to play, how to pass, and the kind of best moment so far is going to Dublin to Union Cup. It seems like this last year, but it's almost 2 years ago now, after the long 2020, and was getting ready to go to Bingham Cup as well, the first massive worldwide tournament for us after the Union, which is obviously it's more European for us. But it's been a huge change in my life. Some of the friends I've met through the club are the closest friends that I've ever met. I mean, you're a rugby guy, Sean. You know what rugby teams are like. It's like a brotherhood, and it really is. Oh. But having that meeting, a lot of the guys that I've met through the team are people that I've never crossed paths, different backgrounds, different, even in the gay world, which is quite small, people you'd never meet, never mind become best friends. So it's huge part of my life.
Yeah, brilliant. So what does this pathway into rugby sort of entail? Obviously, we got you became a prop out of it, but what are sort of the stages that you have to go through to get on a rugby field at the end of it?
Well, it starts at the very beginning. I think we started off, casting my mind back, is doing a bit of netball rugby and getting used to passing and things like that, and then some passing drills, as well as the fitness. The fitness is pretty heavy to start with, because the vast majority of us are not fit at all. And Simon, in my year, put us through our paces. One of our volunteer coaches put us through our paces usually on a Tuesday night. The fear of those horrible words that used to ring in my mind around the double pitches 3 times used to kill me. So it starts off as that, and it just progressively gets harder and harder and more in depth, and you learn more about the game and the strategic side of it. And as well as that, we watch other teams. We watched the 1s, the 2s, the 3s, and the 4s at the time. We watched a lot of rugby together. We do a lot of bonding, and then I think so that we started in, I think, the 2nd week in September. By the end of October, we went to Edinburgh to the Caledonian Thebans rugby clinic that they have every year, and it's a number of teams come round, normally 7 or 8 teams, and it's a weekend of full contact rugby, and that's your first taste of rugby really. And then you continue to develop, and then we'll have a pass out game pathway versus pathway with some of the other players from other teams versus each other. We normally do it under lights and have some drinks and have a good night. But obviously, COVID's thrown a spanner in that works for the guys this year.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, the pass-out game is pretty legendary. It's usually a big Friday night game, and the entire club turns out to it, as well as friends and family and parents. A lot of the guys who never thought they'd be playing rugby in front of their parents or brothers and sisters or loved ones and partners. Suddenly, it's a really big night. Some of the older members of the club get in and make cameos. I usually end up making a cameo on one side or the other or both. And it's just about sort of getting that confidence and saying they've gone through a program that takes them to playing 80 minutes under the floodlights and then a few beers afterwards. It's just a really great environment. So I think it's something we're very, very proud of.
Casper, do you think it's something that a lot more clubs should be doing? This whole pathway to into rugby.
I mean, it's obviously one of the unique things about the Steelers, and one of the really great thing about the Steelers is that for most people, for most clubs, they'll turn you away if you haven't played rugby before, or at least probably you would feel a bit uncomfortable because there is no entry. Yeah, or start you on the ring. Exactly. Well, exactly. Yeah, or maybe for a bit bigger, put you a bit further forward. But yeah, and I think that it's a real shame that not just gay people, but people who haven't come across rugby for any reason in their life, just haven't been exposed to it or didn't feel comfortable with the what's perceived to be laddie culture, aren't introduced to it, because we all know it's an amazing sport. Brian just said it brings everyone close together. You feel like you're a real tight-knit group with those friends you make through rugby. So yeah, one of the best things about the Steelers is that we can introduce that to people who also probably have got a lot of talent. Like I've played people in the ones who come up through the pathway and they definitely fit in. So it's not just about bonding. It's also about making the most of obviously the talent some people have.
No, for sure. So let's talk about this year then. Obviously, no rugby, very little rugby played in 2020. How did you go about keeping everybody engaged with the club and with what's going on? Casper, as the first team captain, how was that especially in lockdown 1 and 2? We'll come on to the lockdown 3 in a second.
I mean, it's obviously well. So for the first one, I think there was obviously a huge disappointment that we couldn't finish off our season, and we can go into Bingham, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later. But I think that one of the hardest things have been the false starts and.
We lost Casper?
Looks like it
dropped off.
I think I might be losing you a bit, but yeah, on those times where we haven't managed to actually have games, it just makes it very difficult to, I think, encourage people and get people going back to training, because everyone wants to play. That's why people come down. And I think one thing we found is that we're seeing quite a lot of really quite good players, quite talented players joining just because they want to run about. People in lockdown are craving A, bonding, but B, actually being able to move and exercise like they were before. And so when we're into sort of the third lockdown now, and there's going to be no games until probably now September, it has made it very difficult to organise and plan, as Matt will attest to.
Yeah, I mean, I think just from the organisation side, the biggest thing that we came into it with is the focus on community and on the family, our club family. That was the most important thing. How do we make sure that we can keep doing things that keep our community together? And the earlier lockdowns were a bit easier. The weather was better. You could meet up and do more training. You could start up and see people. There was an element of sort of the novelty of Zoom then was there, and which has definitely worn off. And I think that part was better. It was difficult. We made a real effort as soon as we could possibly get back. I think we've never been a club that's really embraced touch rugby, particularly in the past. But I think we've learned out of this that there is a real place for touch rugby within our club in the future, because it suddenly brought people back. And one of the things we're proud of is we ran a sort of a touch 25 tournament to try and celebrate our 25th birthday. And so, we mixed, first 15 to pathway and, all the way through the squads, players that wouldn't necessarily normally play together, created new friendships and got people sort of just enjoying rugby. So we had a 6-week sort of league that built up to a finals day on October the 31st, where we had birthday cake and a beer and celebrated our big day.
Awesome. Has it, in lockdown 3, how hard has it been to try and keep people motivated, keep people interested, knowing that rugby is, a bloody long time away?
Yeah, tricky. I'd say, sorry to jump in, Matt, but and I think that there's definitely one of the challenges we're going to face is getting these people who like earlier in the season, and partly by the Touch 25 thing, which was put on with the club and was fantastic success. How to keep these guys motivated and keep coming back down, and just make sure that September or when we're allowed back, we can keep the players coming back and actually make a gain from the season rather than just having it all be negative.
Yeah, I
think go on, Matt.
No, I was just going to say, I think one of our concerns, I think we're relatively confident as a club that, the majority of our members will come back. I think we're hopeful that the Bingham Cup, which was postponed to next year, will be a lure back for people to come, the prospect of touring internationally next year. And, the demographic of our club means that, people are still friendships and will come back and haven't taken on new responsibilities. My concern a little bit is the rugby we play in Essex. Are we going to see the same clubs being able to come back? Are we going to have the same oppositions there? Are we going to find ourselves, either, doing really, really well, which would be great against clubs that are now struggling, which would be unfortunate for them? Or is it, are they going to not, have teams that the leagues are going to have to be all shaken up again, which creates, headaches in its own right as well? So, I think there's a lot of uncertainty, and grassroots rugby in its own right is in, a little bit in peril. And we hope that, we can get back to training. Because in whatever form, there was lots of talk about not wanting to do the scrummage game and, that's not proper rugby, why do it? But I think everyone now is prepared and ready for whatever rugby we can get. We will absolutely grab with both hands.
And talking of grabbing with both hands and playing rugby again, Brian, how has not being a sort of a new player, how has not playing felt, not being able to run around on a Saturday and learn and keep learning and developing?
It's been, I would definitely say this lockdown's been the hardest. Lockdown 1 and 2, we did have a lot where, again, like Matt said, Zoom was in fashion then, and it was a bit of a novelty to start with. One thing that our club was really good at, and Matt can take a lot of credit for this, is we started back to train even before the Touch 25. We got back, even though we could only do fitness and it was limited what we could do. We didn't have changing rooms, we didn't have showers, we did it. And as a player who relies on the club, not just for my fitness and to push myself, but to see my friends, and even though we were in pods of 6 back then, to the clubs that have shunned that, I would say to reconsider, because it was fantastic. Even just to get out of the house for a couple of hours was great. And then as things released a bit more, we got to do a bit more, then we started a little bit of contact. As much as it wasn't, we weren't doing lineouts, we weren't doing scrumming, we weren't doing full rugby, we were getting there, and it was still good. And then the Touch 25 tournament, like Casper said, it was good. It was fantastic. Mixed everything up in the club with a good laugh. We dressed up in fancy dress for the last week. Lots of banter. Really fantastic 6 weeks. Was devastated when it ended, and then we went back into lockdown again.
Well, let's talk about some good stuff then. There's a documentary coming out in a few weeks at the Glasgow Film Festival. Matt, give us the lowdown.
Sure.
How did this come about? Tell us about it.
I mean, it almost became another casualty of COVID. So the documentary was meant to get its UK release back last March at the BFI Flair Festival in London South Bank, but everything got cancelled. But essentially, Eamon Ashton Atkinson was a player with us back in 2018. We were heading off to Amsterdam for the Bingham Cup, which is the sort of, the international IGR tournament, 80 or so teams playing. He is a journalist and a sort of film recorder, and with concussion, got ruled out of playing. So decided he'd bring his camera along and follow the club around and see it. So we took 6 teams to that tournament, and he predominantly focused on sort of the first 15s campaign, as there was great hopes. That was just after the unbeaten year, so it was a sort of natural sort of would have been the cherry on the cake, and it was just some fantastic rugby, some fantastic stories showing what international gay rugby is about, what our club is about, but then also zeroed in on 3 members of our club: Nick Evans, who is our director of rugby at the time, Drew McDowell, Simon Jones, and both in the first 15, and told their stories. And it sort of juxtaposes the sort of brutality of rugby and how rugby can sort of bring everyone together, but it's a physical, masculine game, alongside drag acts and mental health awareness and the misogyny in women in rugby and what they still have to deal with. And I think it's got some real highs and some real lows. I mean, Casper's there in their first 15. When you saw that, what did you think about it, Casper?
Well, initially I was sad that most of my speaking roles were cut, but like no, I mean I think that one of the strengths of it does highlight highlight the team, highlight sort of how close we are, and I think also as you say, sort of like really speak to Drew's story, Si's story, and Nick's stories. They're all pretty fascinating, and you get to see some pretty fun rugby as well. It's pretty well choreographed, well shot. So I mean, I'd definitely recommend to go see it if you get the chance.
Yeah, so it's screening at the Glasgow Film Festival. That's where it's getting its UK premiere. I mean, it's had huge support from both England Rugby. They've been sort of covering our social media and promoting it and being very helpful in the background to help it get sort of more coverage. It was in the New Zealand International Film Festival where the All Blacks, showed the trailer on their social media and were fully supportive of it. So it's a great advertisement for rugby, and I think that's why these big national boards are getting behind it, because it just shows what rugby can really be about. So it's an online screening, so you can get tickets at the Glasgow International Film Festival. It's 26th of February to the 1st of March. So I don't know if this is probably go out maybe before or after this, but if not, there'll be other opportunities.
We'll put it out before. We'll definitely put it out. That's one of the reasons why I messaged you, Matt, because I thought that this, even if this could help a little bit, probably not on the same level as England Rugby or the All Blacks, but
all help's great, and I think everybody at Grassroots Rugby should look at it, because we had the article in the Sunday Times yesterday where it's described as essential viewing, and that's not because it's us; it's because it tells real rugby stories and it shows what rugby clubs can be and what it means to people. And not everybody always recognises that. I think it will help.
Definitely. No, look, I think it's a brilliant thing that you were able to almost sort of be the backdrop of in sort of a beautiful film about rugby. I really can't wait to see it. I'm going to get my ticket for the Glasgow Film Festival, and we'll put the links everywhere so everyone can get their ticket. So life after COVID now. So rugby, obviously, we're in February now. Rugby's probably a few more months away. How can what is the sort of the short-term goal, and then perhaps a medium and long-term goal for the club, or even for yourselves, Casper? How do you feel sort of where the club should be, or looking to do short-term?
Well, for me, it's going to be really hard to sort of get a measure of where we should be, and what like our objectives should be. I think that definitely once the whole thing's blown over to an extent, and when we can do this, we need to sit down with the boys and the team leaders in the team and work out what we want from the season, insofar as we can have one. Fingers crossed. I think in the short term, at the very least, we have to look to just build on the gains we made in the seasons leading up to it, and then hopefully set ourselves some bigger targets in the medium to longer term. Obviously, the one thing you want to be thinking about is promotion and winning the big tournaments we go to every summer, but just making sure that we do it in a sustainable way that isn't going to leave people burnt out, isn't going to leave people feeling disappointed, and basically setting the goals that are realistic for ourselves as a group.
Brian, how do you think the next sort of period in time is going to shape up? Do you think we're going to go straight back into a full contact season, or is that almost another year away from? Are we going to have another season of sort of not a lot?
To be honest, I think it's going to be the second one. I think it's going to be not very much happening this season anyway. I think it's going to be probably back end of the year before we're back into some sort of proper rugby. But I don't see that as a negative thing. I think a lot of clubs, ourselves included, are going to have to get themselves back into shape where they're capable of doing full contact rugby. I think that's one thing we learned, is how easy it is to forget your hands and how hard it is to tackle after so long not doing contact. So I think a lot of clubs, it'll come back. It's like riding a bike, it'll come back. But that first few hits are brutal, absolutely brutal.
And Matt, in terms of the club, what's the big pie in the sky vision for sort of 5 or 10 years time?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think to echo the boys, the initial thing is going to be just enjoyment and bringing the family back together and making sure people remember the fun that they've had and why they enjoy rugby, and doing it in a safe way, both for everyone's physical and mental health as well. Long term, the club, we always strive to be the best we can on the pitch. And I think, we've got a great group of players, and we've got a great system in terms of recruitment and bringing new people in that is going to develop those players to continue to be better. And we will always want to be as good as we can. What I'd also say is we want to make sure we're reaching as many people as possible and helping in terms of spreading the word about rugby, getting more people trying it, and helping the wider sport become, the most inclusive it can be. We've done a lot of work this week and in the last couple of weeks with Harlequins and the Harlequins Foundation around their LGBT History Month. They've made some big announcements today, which is fantastic to see. And that was a year ago today. We were there at the Stoop for that game, and it was fantastic to be there.
Yeah, brilliant day. I was there too. Brilliant, yeah, absolutely superb.
Storm Dennis made it a bit, pretty shit with the weather, to be honest with you. But the rest of it was good. But we had 3 teams out and all down at the Stoop that day, so it was a busy day. The work they're doing with Monash University, the work the RFU is doing, they're putting a lot into their sort of plans for diversity and inclusion and work they've recognised and are pushing grassroots rugby to realise that inclusivity doesn't mean doing things special. It's just about being welcome. It's about having everybody who wants to play rugby feel that they have a place in rugby, because ultimately every club is going to need to find more players and recruit new people. And we don't want this game sort of shrinking down to any smaller than it already is. So let's keep building that and make sure people feel welcome. So, I think there's work for us to do as the Steelers with the other IGR clubs in England and internationally to help with that. But we'll focus on us and we'll focus on our family and making sure that we get back, playing rugby and doing another pathway and improving ourselves as much as we can.
What a perfect way to sort of end. And yeah, beautiful. Perfect way to end, because rugby needs players. Players need places to play. We all need to get back on a pitch and get back in a bar and just be around each other. And whether that's with the ball in our hand or not, it doesn't really matter. You summed it up there with the word family. I wish I didn't have to ask this then, because we ask this everyone, because you summed it up so perfectly. But hopes and your fears for the next 12 months is something we ask every guest and every club that we've spoken to. Casper, we'll start with you. What do you hope and what do you fear about sort of rugby or the?
I guess I kind of alluded to it. Yeah, no, I guess I kind of alluded to it in the last thing, thinking about where the club headed. I expect the first hits are going to hurt, but I really want to be back on the pitch by September. Really hope for is that we have a cohesive unit, and as Matt says, we feel like we're part of the team, and we don't, and that we essentially just have a lot of people who are working towards the same goal with a lot of motivation and are very, very keen. My fear would be that after 18 months, some people maybe don't know their place or
yeah, it's gone for good.
Yeah, it looks like it. Brian, we'll come to you, pal. What do you hope and what do you fear for sort of the rugby or the club in the next 12 months?
For me, it's probably the same as everyone else. My hope is that we see some end to this very soon, at least a target date, that we can get back to some sort of, whether it be fitness or something, just anything at this stage, I'd be pretty happy with. Like I said this to my housemate the other day, I'd be very happy if I can go to the gym, go to rugby, even if it's just for fitness, and grab a beer outside with 6 people. I'd be very happy. But anything else a bonus. My fear is, I think as a club, I don't have many fears for us. I think we're going to bounce back, and I think we're going to bounce back strong, and we're in a pretty good position. My fear is for the other clubs, and are they in a good position as us? And obviously, you're only as good as your competition. So yeah, that's my fear is around that, is how many clubs this is going to cost. But we'll just need to wait and see and try and support other clubs the best we can. But yeah, just want to get back on the field. Whether I'm running or playing rugby, I really don't care at this point.
Lovely. And finally, Matt, tell us your hopes and your fears.
Yeah, I mean, I think my hopes for us are that we just get back as quick as possible, because that's what we all need. But for the sport as a wider, my hopes are that we all take this opportunity to really look at how we can improve our setup and our systems and who we are as a sport, so that we can all get back and attract as many people to the game as possible, to sort of fill those front lines and back lines as much as we can possibly have to. So I think there's an opportunity for us all here to be selling our sport. I think we could do that a lot better. My fears are very similar to Brian, is which clubs aren't going to make it through, and how long is this going to take before we sort of lose people and the experience and the knowledge in the sport, from people that just won't come back and feel that they've had their time. So clubs are only as good as sort of their volunteers and the leaders, and those people have gone off and found new things, or have realised that they just can't commit the time anymore. Clubs will really struggle and suffer. So both our IGR clubs in England, who are all small and who need support of the communities, as well as sort of our Essex sort of clubs as well. So I think there's a real fear around that. And I know it's the fear of the RFU and it's the fear that we all have, but we want to have good opposition and good games and get back into those structures. So we just hope that they'll all come out of it strong.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's been absolutely brilliant talking to you, gents. Yeah, Matt, Casper, Brian, thank you very much. Everyone that's watching, head to rugbystore.co.uk, go and use promo code FYB pod to get 10% off. But more importantly today, go and get a ticket for the Glasgow Film Festival and for the film about the Kings Cross Steelers. Go and watch it. It's going to be brilliant. Can't wait. We're going to get my ticket right away and we'll all watch it together. But yeah, absolutely brilliant to talk to you, gents. If there's anything we can do here at Philly Boots, just give us a shout and we'll post anything you need. So yeah, it's been a real pleasure. So we'll catch up with you soon. Cheers, everyone. Yep. Good night.
Appreciate it, Sean.
Cheers, boys.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks.